test is tomorrow at 2, so let's go on here. Okay. What stage? Yeah, I meant quiz. Okay. What stage do we see right here? And what is this right there? Dental lamina. And this layer we see right there, outer enamel epithelium. And how about this layer? Inner enamel epithelium. And this is what? Dental papilla. What kind of tissue is that? Ectomesenchyme. And how about this in here? What is that? Stellate reticulum. And surrounding this, you get a kind of a hint of that. What is that? Dental follicle or sac. Okay, and what stage do we have here? Late Bell stage. Why? Because we have dentin and enamel being formed. And right here, we see a layer being formed, and that would be what? Reduced enamel epithelium, because we can see that outer enamel epithelium coming down and laying right on top of the ameloblasts. And what is this right here? And a tooth bud. And how about that? Cervical loop. Okay, and again, there's that reduced enamel epithelium forming right at the cusp, dentin, predentin, and there is the pulp chamber filled with, most textbooks would call that pulp, but you could call it dental papilla as well. Okay, and how about these cells right there? Odontoblast, and what specifically is this tissue right there? Predentin. And how about these cells right there? Ameloblasts. And right there is what? Reduced enamel epithelium. How about this right here? Hertwig's epithelial root sheath, and you could also call that, and that what? Diaphragm. And right here we have what? Cervical loop, and that would make these cells what? Outer enamel epithelium, and that would be inner enamel epithelium, and we're beginning to get some cells right there, and that would constitute what? Stratum intermedium, and these cells would be what? Stellate reticulum. Okay, well, same thing right there. You see the cell-free zone, but if we were to look at this and consider this on the basis of the ameloblast life cycle, which stage would these be in? Morphogenic stage. We don't see any odontoblasts being formed. So, therefore, we will call that the morphogenic stage. Same thing right here. You don't see any odontoblasts. You see the stratum intermedium. And I grant you that these are not cuboidal as they're described. They're a little bit more columnar, but those nuclei are right smack dab in the middle. They have not yet started to reverse their polarity. But very shortly, these will be in the organizing stage. And right here, what would this be? Organizing stage. And these are what cells? And what about these things sticking out right there? Odontoblastic processes. How about these cells right here? In what stage are those? Formative. You can see some enamel right there. Here are the odontoblasts. We have dentin, predentin and dentin. And we have the odontoblasts, and those nuclei have gone over to that side, which would be proximal side, and there's the distal side. Okay, and how about these things sticking out right there? Tomes processes. And what is that layer we see right there? That's enamel. And how about these cells? Melloblast. What stage are they in? Take a look at the enamel right here, and what do you see? See that kind of serrated end, edge, divots in it? So that's where Tomes processes were, and so these would still be in the formative stage. Okay, and those things right there? Tomes processes. That's about as good as you're going to see them in a light micrograph. And right there, what is that layer? Reduced enamel epithelium.
So is that still the formative?
And yeah, those are still formative. If you see Tomes processes, or even if you don't, but if you can see those divots in the surface of the enamel, it's in the formative stage. At the very end of the laying down of the enamel, that last layer that's laid down is structureless, and so there won't be any divots in it, and shortly thereafter they enter the maturation stage. And those will be demonstrated or quizzed with the rat incisors that we looked at in lab.
Dr. Petey?
Yeah.
What, can you explain which side's the proximal and distal?
Okay, distal side is where it's actually secreting.
Okay.
And that's the proximal side. This is the only place where those terms are used. Otherwise, you'd use basal and apical for an epithelium. But because these things have reversed their polarity, they've used those terms instead. And recall that they will reverse their polarity again when they fuse with the oral epithelium during eruption. Okay, what is this thing shaded in orange right there? And what is this one? Lateral nasal process, and this would be the, and that would be the, and how about that black spot right there? And before it was the nasal pit, what was it called? Nasal plateau. Okay, and how about that right there? Palatal shelf. There's an eye right there. I'm not going to ask you the eye on the lab practical. Okay, and that right there is what? Developing mandible, and that would be, and what kind of tissue is Meckel's cartilage? Hyaline cartilage. Derived from what arch? First arch. Derived from what embryonic tissue? Ectomesenchyme. Okay, and right there is Meckel's cartilage, and right there we have, well, it's not really a bud because we have that little depression, so that would make this cap stage. And how about that line of cells we see right there? Osteoblasts. Osteoclasts are also fair game. Okay, well that one we've looked at already. How about this stage right here? That's kind of tough. Early bell, perhaps. Late cap. Depends what I feel like that day. And right there is what? Permanent tooth. But I had a professor when I was an undergraduate, taught embryology, and I, of course, got an A in the class. Much to my surprise, I should say. And one of my friends in the class got a B. And I thought, this guy would be getting an A. And he went in and talked to the professor. And I encourage you all to come in and talk if you have a problem with one of your grades. But Dr. Dean looked at this kid and he says, you know why I gave you a B? He said, no. He says, why? He says, because I didn't like your attitude. That's what happens when you go to a private college. Okay, how about this structure right here? Cervical loop. Okay, and these cells right there would be what kind of cells and in what stage? Melloblasts. No, not organized. Well, yeah, organizing stage. Okay, because we have We have dentin, well, some predentin, but we don't have any enamel, so we'll say that those are in organizing stage. And from what embryonic tissue do these arise? Ectoderm. Okay, and here we have what? Well, we've got stratum intermedium, and so these are ameloblasts. We're just getting a hint of some odontoblasts starting to differentiate. So for a slide like this, if I were to put the pointer down here, away from any of these differentiating cells, then that would be morphogenic. Well, yeah, morphogenic. I'd give you something more distinctive, something more like this, and these would be what? Organizing. You can just see those odontoblasts reaching up, start to poke those odontoblastic processes up there and actively laying down that dentin to start to recede away from that boundary. This kind of makes histology come alive. Okay, and how about that layer right there? Stratum intermedium, and right there, that thing is a odontoblastic process. Okay, and how about that structure we see right there, and right there, and right there? Well, you could say it's an odontoblastic process, but it's best to be as specific as you can. So you would write something down like a dentinal tubule with an odontoblastic process, if indeed you could see that. So you have dentinal tubules, there's the DEJ right there, there's the enamel, and those cells are in what stage? Formative. Okay, and now nice odontoblastic process sitting right in a dentinal tubule. You can see some of the canaliculi coming across, more ameloblasts, and we also have some odontoblasts. Why are those basophilic? You know, ribosomes, they're secreting collagen. Okay, and more examples of kind of a calcospheric deposition or calcification of some odontoblasts, and perhaps even some capillaries coming in between those, and more of those Holmes processes right there. And this is pretty much the same. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, that stage right there would be what? Tooth bud. And that would be what? Dental lamina. The rest of this tissue could be classified as what? Oral epithelium, specifically, it'd be ectoderm. Okay, and we have pretty much the same thing right there as the previous slide, and that one as well. And right there we can follow a line going all the way around, and that would be what? Basement membrane separating this structure from this tissue, and this tissue would be what? Ectomesenchyme. Don't really see the dental follicle yet, but this is ectomesenchyme. Okay, and that's a little shelf. There's the tongue. You do not need to know the muscles, the extrinsic muscles of the tongue, but it's kind of useful to look at those and consider what you're learning in gross anatomy as well. There's the developing lens right there. There's the developing retina. This comes from surface ectoderm. This comes from neuroectoderm.
Did that slide somehow miss the other eye, or is it missing the eye?
Yeah, it missed the other eye. If we had a cycloptic pig embryo, the eye would be right in the middle. Okay. And that right there is what? Dental lamina. Okay, and that's it.